first, right? So I brought a few little things to set up here.
Ooh, that's the best fruit.
Is that the best fruit?
Better than the green one.
Guys, I didn't know how expensive deodorant really costs, so this was impressive even in my own kind of like. But you guys are going to see why I need it today. Not that I smell bad. But do me a favor, just look at the person next to you. Just tell them if it wasn't for you, I'd be the best looking person in the room. It's good for those of you that are sitting alone, you're good. So, you guys all know that we've been talking about the heart of worship for the past couple of weeks. And tonight I'm hoping to kind of bring it to a close. But to do that, I'm just going to ask you to just open in prayer in terms of just praying for the word, and then we'll get going from there.
Sure. Let's pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, as we come before you, Lord, as Terrace Road Edenvale on this Tuesday evening, we just want to thank you for being so faithful to us. We want to thank you that as Joel gives us your word, Lord, as we look into the heart of worship, Lord, that Holy Spirit, you might give us a deep sense as we close this series, exactly where we are in the heart of worship, Lord. We just want to thank you for being so faithful to us, even though so often we're not faithful to you. We want to thank you for having the honor and the privilege of being allowed in a place where we can come and worship you, Lord. And as we start winding down, Lord, I just pray that people here might not be tired, Lord, because you might give them an energy, Lord. And as we look at the word that Joel prepares for us today, Lord, that it might touch not just our hearts and minds, Lord, but our lives, Lord. We want to give you all honor, praise, and glory in advance for what you will do here today, Lord. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Stu. So tonight I was going to talk, I had titled the sermon something, and tonight it just changed. But we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about what is worship. Because so often we have the idea of, like we spoke about a heart of worship. But what is worship? Well, what is it to you? Well, what do you define it as? We've got this beautiful statement, that we've got this blanket statement, worship is it's a lifestyle. And I want to talk a little bit about that tonight. But what is your favorite song? What is your favorite song? And what is the best way to worship? Have you thought about what's your favorite song? What's your favorite song? Church song.
Church song.
Church song. Yeah. What's your favorite worship song?
Broken Vessel.
Broken Vessel. Well, what's your favorite worship song? Be enthroned. In the back. Anybody? Yeah.
Scandal of Grace.
Oh, yes. Yeah. But yeah, you're going with the same song. Scandal of Grace. Let it rain. Okay. In the back there. What's your favorite worship song at church? Amazing Grace. How great thou art. Oceans. Okay. So we know what our favorite songs are. What's your favorite? What's the best way to worship? Hands up. Hands up. On your knees. Yeah. Where's your favorite place to worship? So I'm asking some questions now.
Anyway.
Is it in the church? Anyway. Okay. Okay. Where is the best place to worship? When is your favorite worship time? All day, every day, 24/7? When is the best time to worship? How do you know your worship was good? Is it that feeling you get inside? It's like, oh, worship was so good today. How does one practice worship? So these are questions that I kind of like, hold on, how do I answer these questions? And I got thinking about, what if you were born deaf? What is worship? Because we just spoke about our favorite songs, but what happens if you couldn't hear it? What about if you were born blind? What is worship? What if you were born dumb and you couldn't speak? What is worship? What is the heart of worship? What is this heart of worship that we seek out? Is it to be able to sing a song? Is it to be able to sing during our favorite time of the day, come to church, wherever we want to worship? And we all know that saying worship is a lifestyle. You know that blanket statement, you need to live a life of worship. Well, what does it mean? It's beautiful, but what does it mean? To live a life of worship, does it mean that we should be singing all day? To be happy and excited every day, every moment of the day? Even when you're not excited, not happy? You ever get to work in the morning and the boss tells you to do something and you're like, we use this blanket statement that is true, yet we don't fully understand it. So, worship is defined as the following, and I actually read this up. It says, it is the expression of reverence and adoration for a deity. Reverence, expression. So, express means it needs to be something that you show. Okay? The expression of reverence and adoration for a deity. So, if it is an expression, then it would mean that it needs to be expressed in an action. Okay, are we cool with that? So, in other words, to show reverence and adoration. Reverence and adoration is to show deep love and respect. Okay, that's the definition of reverence and adoration. So, the nature of worship is that it is the expression of deep love and respect. We thought it's raising our hands, singing a song? No. It's to express deep love and respect. Worship isn't about how well we sing. You know, we've got guys in the back. I know Matt always feels that he doesn't want to sing because his voice. It's not about how well we sing. What is a worship leader? Is a worship leader someone who stands here in front of the church and whose voice is melodious and who's sweet, like their voice is sweet and strong and powerful? We just figured out that worship is an expression of deep love and respect. So, what is worship? I want to talk to you about a guy named Joshua, and we're going to talk a little bit about it today. But the book of Joshua starts like this. The Lord speaks to Joshua and says, Moses is dead. This is this great leader, and Joshua kind of followed under Moses, and Moses now was gone. The very next words the Lord says to Joshua is, be strong and have good courage. So be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land. But I just want to focus on the top part. Be strong and courageous. Okay? And the very next, I think it's verse 7, it says the following. Be thou strong and very courageous. So there we go. Again it says, be strong and very courageous. So he didn't tell him once, he told him twice. In verse 9 it reads on to say, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Hold on. What does it mean the Lord's telling you to be strong? What's the opposite of strong? So that means Joshua felt he was. So the Lord told him, be strong. What's the opposite of courageous? Cowardly, fear. Right? I'm afraid. So that means Joshua felt he was weak and he was afraid. And the Lord told him, be strong and courageous. Didn't I command you to be strong and courageous? Why would the Lord repeat himself 3 times? It's always interesting, you always hear pastors say, hold on, but the Lord said it twice, that's important. He said it 3 times to this guy. Could it be that Joshua was afraid? In fact, he probably felt like he wasn't ready. You guys ever feel like the Lord tells you to do something and you're like, no, I can't do this. Not now, Lord. Could it be that he felt he wasn't good enough? You ever felt that way? He had every reason to be afraid. Did he have it all together? No. Moses, this great leader, this man above men, this humble prince was no more. Moses is gone. His mentor, his friend, was gone. Wouldn't you be afraid? The leader of leaders just is no more. It's almost discouraging to a point of depression. How do you choose to move forward? Worship. Do you think Joshua stood up and started singing a song? No. His response was worship. So it's okay to be afraid. Let's just make that clear. Someone like Joshua was afraid. So if you're ever afraid in this world, it's okay. Nothing wrong with that. It's fine to feel like you don't have it all together. You ever feel like your life just doesn't seem like it's all together? It's okay. But I want you to look at the very next verse. Verse 10 says this. Okay, so Joshua ordered the officers of the people, go through the camp and tell the people to get their provisions ready. His response was worship. He didn't break out into song. He didn't get down on his knees. His response was that of obedience. So, the evidence of worship is not in your strength, it's not in your abilities, but worship is evident in your response to God. Okay? Will your worship be like Joshua? That in the face of this huge loss, that in spite of your fear, that in the moment of you having to face some of your greatest fears, you would put your trust in God and be obedient to His words. Today I thought, how did the children of Israel worship God? Because we have this idea that worship is when we come here, we sing our songs. And then it got me thinking, I wonder how these men of God worship God. Did they sing a song? If so, what song did they sing? Did they lead the people in song? If so, how did it sound? So today you guessed it, Joshua's man, the son of Nun, is the guy we're going to be talking about. Joshua, the son of Nun, is the worship leader we're going to be talking about today. I want to look tonight. He was called to worship in a time of loss, in a time of fear, and in a time of uncertainty. Have you ever experienced loss? Were you ever afraid? Have you ever been uncertain? Well, if you've experienced this, and if you're still experiencing it now, it's okay. You're just like Joshua. Joshua was a great man. Okay? He led the children of Israel into the promised land. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to feel like you don't have it all together. But your response in a time like that needs to be worship. 1 John 4 verse 18 says the following. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. The Bible clearly states that God is love. Right? You know that I didn't actually put that verse up, but the Bible says God is love. I want you to replace that word love with God. So I'm going to read it to you now a little differently. It says, there is no fear in God, but perfect God drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in God. Joshua, do not be afraid. Be courageous, be strong. You know why? Don't be afraid. I am with you. I will make you perfect. Your perfection is in me. So, to worship is to be made perfect in love. Joshua's response was not to break out in song like a Bollywood movie, you know. Have you seen those Bollywood movies? You know, like it's like everything. I don't know where they find a tree in the middle of nowhere, but it just works. And they change outfits so often. But Joshua didn't do that. Joshua's response was not to break out in song. Rather, his response was an action of obedience. His words were conviction of truth. The truth was evidence in him that when the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh responded to him, they couldn't do anything but follow in unity to a point that they even began to repeat the Lord's instruction that was given to Joshua. So get this, the Lord instructed Joshua, be strong and courageous, be strong and very courageous. Did I not command you to be strong and courageous 3 times? Guess what's coming out of Joshua's mouth? Worship. The very words that God placed in his heart. So in verse 18 it says, this is the response from those 3 tribes. It said, whosoever he be that doth rebel against thy commandment, and will not hearken unto the words in all that thou commandest him, he shall be put to death. Only be strong and of good courage. Sorry, that's verse 18 for the next one. So, okay, it's not there. It's cool. So the whole idea was that verse says that your worship needs to be so powerful that people start repeating what he's saying. His obedience was, we're going to go and take the land. But his obedience was so powerful that what God told him kind of sparked a flame. That what he said, people followed and said exactly the same thing. So, has your worship ever been so evident that your convictions were so strong that others followed in your worship? So as a worship leader, in terms of what we know as worship leaders in church today, we can sing and we see people follow. But has your life of worship been so evident that somebody says, I want to be like you. I want to say the things that you say. To a point that they repeated God's instruction. Has your worship been so evident that people follow what you say? Before the battle, Joshua worshipped God by being obedient, so much so that his words and actions were influential to those around him. So we just spoke about Joshua before the battle. What about Joshua at the battlefield? Joshua chapter 5 reads as follows, and verse 10 says, on the evening, and the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal. Well, let me read it from there. On the evening of the 14th day of the month, while camped at Gilgal on the plains of Jericho, the Israelites celebrated the Passover. The day after the Passover, that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened bread and roasted grain. The manna stopped the day after they ate this food from the land. There was no longer any manna for the Israelites, but that year they ate of the produce of Canaan. So we're going to stop there, and I want to just read something to you here, because I found this really, really exciting. Okay? Here the Lord is no more feeding them through manna. So they've been fed for 40 years, okay, in a certain way. They are so comfortable, this is the way it's done. 40 years later, they were tasting of the produce of the land. Have you gotten so comfortable with the way things are that the Lord's going to stop it, and then you're like, hold on, what now? Okay? In fact, things were getting better and tasting good. Okay? And they were looking great. Again, things of old have passed, but this time they have passed to something better. Imagine eating bread for your entire life. So for those that are young, can you imagine just eating bread? Right? And then all of a sudden, you are introduced to the flavors of fruit. What's your favorite fruit? Apples, lychees, grapes, bananas, strawberries, whatever you can think about. Imagine, for 40 years, all they've ever tasted, all they've ever known of being provided for was this one thing. It was tasting better, wasn't it? The circumstances are changing. Okay? Have you ever had things going right in your life? So Joshua just had things really turned upside down for him. Now everything's turning right. Okay? Like things seem like they're just so good. So how do you worship when you are in those times? Okay? One, Joshua's response of obedience was when he was afraid, when he just experienced loss. Verse 13. Now, when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied, "but as commander of the army of the Lord I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" The commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did so. I want you to look at just verse 13. Joshua embodies what we read before. When the Lord said, "Be strong and courageous." He embodies what was said in verse 6, verse 7, and verse 9. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and very courageous. Did I not command you, be strong and courageous? Okay? If a man is standing there with a sword, there's a door. Do you know where I'm going? I'm not going to walk up to that man with the sword drawn. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, it doesn't make sense. But here's a man who takes the very little words of the Lord and he says, "I'm going to be strong and courageous." And he didn't question. He walked straight up to him. Are you for us or against us? Joshua embodies, be strong and courageous. I assure you, genuinely, if you saw someone with a sword, I'm walking the other way. Okay? Let me clarify something. This is Joshua worshiping. You know why? Because he's walking in obedience. Okay? He's walking in God's command. He's courageous. That's what God told him to be. The heart of worship doesn't change in changing circumstances. If anything, our worship becomes more evident. When things get better, our expression of reverence and adoration is to show a deeper love and a greater respect. So that means, did you see what Joshua just did? I am what did it read? I am as the commander of the army. What did Joshua do? He fell down, face down. Face down. You know what? It's not a carpet. This is the battlefield. So his face hit the ground, like hit dirt. What is your posture of worship? Have you ever respected someone so much that you would... Could you imagine if Cam is there and I respected Cam so much that I would bow down before him? Worship. His response was worship. When last have you felt inside your spirit that you need to respect anyone, that it would be evident in your posture? Does your heart of worship reverence your God to a point that you would bow down before Him? And when you are in His presence, would you fall with your face to the ground? In this day and age, we respect someone by greeting them like this. Do you think Joshua would have shook that man's hand? A heart of worship. So, in a time of great loss, Joshua's response was obedience, worship. In a time of great joy and everything just finding its place, Joshua's response was obedience. But not even obedience where he just followed, he fell down. In a time when things were good, he got down on his knees. Okay? So what about the walls of Jericho? So I want to quickly set the scene for you guys. Okay? A city, this is the walls of Jericho. We've all heard the story. You know that song in Sunday school, you know what? How does it go? Yes, and the walls came crumbling down, right? A city that was impregnable. You couldn't get into the city. Okay? The walls were structured on so there's a picture that I got for you guys. So the walls were structured something like this. So it's a very blurred picture. I couldn't find a better one, but those are soldiers at the bottom there. Okay? There's an embankment, so that's just an embankment. Then the wall starts. Then they've got another embankment to the second wall. These walls were structured in a three-tiered plan. The wall started with an earthen rampart and an embankment, which ran from the ground level upward and an incline to a stone retaining wall. The second tier, the stone retaining wall, stood 4 to 5 meters high on top of the earthen embankment. On the top of the stone retaining wall stood another wall made of mud brick for 6 feet or 2 meters thick and 6 to 8 meters high. Together, these two walls combined to form the fortification, 32 or 46 feet high, which is about 10 to 14 meters high. Now, I'm not 2 meters tall. I think Matthew just is about 2 meters tall. What's 14 meters? Wouldn't you be like, you see this thing in front of you? It's a bit drastic. I don't think you're going to feel like, hold on, we got this. Okay? So imagine this. You're a soldier. You dress up every day. You put on your armor. So you put on the breastplate, you put on the belt, you put in your sword, you carry your shield, you carry your spear. This is not light stuff, okay? You get ready for battle on the first day. Your spear in hand, and the general commands you that today all you're going to do is walk around the city wall. Don't you feel like the general's a bit of a, like, hold on, something's not right here. You know? And then to make things even more crazy, you won't utter a sound. That's it. You won't utter a sound. You go on, you put on your armor. Tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day, the next day. 6 days, 7 days, you do exactly the same thing. What army are you? The silent army of no one? All you do is march. What army in their right mind would do such a thing? You're going to battle. What army would come out and protest? Like, you know, they're toy-toying almost. They're not even making a sound. They're protesting. They're just walking around, marching around war. Not a peep or a war cry. You know all about war cries, you guys used to do this with the youth, okay? The purpose of a war cry is a combination of arousing aggression in the camp, so making guys, just pumping them up. And the second part is causing intimidation to the outside. Because if you hear a crowd of people scream, I promise you, It's not the nicest thing. You get a little scared, okay? Let me clarify. This army marched in worship. You see, their actions was done in obedience to the Lord. Each day ready for battle, each step a step of worship. Their silence as deafening as the roar of lions in the dark of night. Have you ever been afraid and there's no sound? Every little thing just spooks you out. They marched in the words of worship that was given to Joshua. Be strong and courageous. This army marched with conviction and purpose. Be strong and courageous. That on the seventh day, just wait and see on the seventh day. In fact, they didn't know what was going to happen on the seventh day. Your worship, you don't know what your worship brings. When you march in obedience, when your worship is obedience, you don't know what the Lord's going to do. So as they marched in reverence to the command of God, their worship was evident in their obedience to God's instruction. Whilst looking at this verse, I started thinking about Naaman. Have you guys heard the story of Naaman? Okay. Naaman was a commander in the army of Syria. He was a good commander and was held in favor because of the victory that God brought him. 2 Kings chapter 5 speaks about how he was instructed to go and dip himself 7 times in the Jordan. He was angry that God could have healed him immediately, or he could go to a cleaner river. Yet he was instructed to go and dip himself 7 times in the Jordan. When he finally did so, that the Lord instructed, he was healed. So, by being obedient, there is healing. You see, when we live out our obedience to God, it is worship. 7 times he dipped himself in the Jordan. 7 days the army marched around the walls of Jericho. And on the 7th day, they marched 7 times. And on the 7th time, their war cry of worship echoed into time and space. Their worship of obedience shook the very foundation of the earth. In the New Testament, there are 2 guys who found themselves in prison for preaching the gospel. Stewie loves this story. Okay? They were whipped and beaten. You all know this. Stewie probably makes you guys come and sit in the front. Right? And they were thrown into a pit of filth and despair. They had every reason to be angry. You ever felt like you're just in the wrong place? Lord, why the heck am I here? They had every reason to be afraid. They feel cheated. They feel unappreciated, like their lives were over. And their expression of worship in that moment was done to express their deep love and respect for God. 2 times in the scriptures, the Bible speaks of how obedience to God shred the fabrics of time and space and shook the foundations of the earth. You see, a heart of worship is one that worships in spirit and in truth. Worshipping in spirit and in truth has nothing to do with how well we sing. It's cool that we can sing. Or it doesn't have anything to do with how loud you sing. Or how great a musician you are. Or how nice the song sounded tonight. The nature of worship is that it is the expression of deep love and respect for God. So when you sing, do you express your love and respect for God? The essence of worship is obedience. In the face of your fears, do you seek to love and respect God? When circumstances change, do you love and respect God? Does your worship echo into time and space and shake the very foundations of the earth? Because I tell you now, on that 7th march, when they marched and they were tired, they carried their shield and their spears and their swords 7 times today. And they shouted out a war cry. I don't know what they shouted out. They raised their voices because that's what God commanded. And in obedience, they followed. And it shook the very walls. On that day, it echoes through time and space. Worshipping God is as simple and as complicated as that. The Bible says we should worship in spirit and in truth. So, this is my little example tonight. Each one of these cans, if I sprayed it, would have a different aroma. Each one of your worship, when it comes out of you, has a beautiful scent. It's amazing when you worship. But it's what's inside. In spirit. What's inside you. Truth of God. It's not working. There we go. The truth of God is constant. The truth of God. I hope this doesn't go off. Okay? But I'm not going to put it that way. So you guys can see this. The truth of Siobhan does that. And I can smell that aroma. The truth, well, the truth is it. The truth of Job, that was pretty cool. When your spirit, when you worship in spirit and in truth, oh, there we go. Oh, that's not good. I don't know. Well, let's try one more time because I think it should work. Okay, there we go. That feels a bit like stew. You know what I'm saying? Okay. What am I showing you? The truth of the Lord never changes. Now, can you imagine that when you worship in spirit, what's inside you? And you combine it with the truth of God, what just happened? You will set things ablaze. Your worship will be so evident that people will feel it. Let me ask you this. The Bible says, take my word and hide it in your heart. Could you imagine if we could take the flame and hide it inside your spirit? Could you imagine if I could take the truth of God and hide it inside you? What would come out? The evidence of worship. Can we put up that title? The evidence of a heart of worship is obedience. So when you worship tonight, it's not about how great you sound. It's about how much love and respect do you have for this God who created everything. It says that He can measure the oceans in the palm of His hand. I don't know about you, but the oceans are big. If you are not able to fall down on your face and worship this God in reverence and in love, then our worship is not worship. I pray that the Lord blesses you. That your worship, if you spray deodorant in your house or air freshener in your house, I hope that you always remember it's what's inside, that your spirit must worship. And that you will always have God's truth. God's truth always shines. Okay? You put those two together, I promise you, you won't just change things around you. You'll set a fire around you. And people will, just like Joshua, you know how what he started saying, people said, be strong and courageous. When the Lord sets that in your heart, and you live out a life of obedience, everybody will start saying the same things. You know the song that Stewie always plays? What's the song that you guys all sing?
Sweat.
Say it again?
It's called Sweat.
Sweat. Yeah. but you understand, Stewie started something, and it was so good that everybody got involved. Right? So here's the deal. True worship. God is looking for true worship. Your worship is not about how great we sound. But that aroma when the truth of God combined with the spirit of man. Oh gosh. That's the aroma of true worship. So may the Lord bless you and make you worship in spirit and in truth tonight.